IDW Sonic Comic Issue 29. Why does Sonic have the time to say all this recap? He's almost roboticized in those Robians in front of the heroes. Why didn't the Robians charge at them immediately? Knuckles goes to attack the Robians even though it's a bad idea because he needs to keep them away from the refugees. And they should be at the point where the cure is almost ready. So why wouldn't he sacrifice himself if it's only going to be a few minutes? Sonic runs off with Silver flying behind him, and he tells Metal Sonic that he needs his help too. Eggman says it's the only way to save him, and tells Metal to activate his defensive measures and do what Sonic says. Sonic grabs Metal's arm, and Metal flies ahead. Once Sonic needs to use his own speed to run off, the heroes fly towards Zavik, and Sonic wants to head straight for the emerald on his chest. He should have said this plan a long time ago. Not wait until Zavik would be able to hear it first and therefore try to stop them. Some fire gets sent at Sonic, and Metal Sonic uses his black shield to protect Sonic on Eggman's order from earlier. Since Metal Sonic was needed to save Sonic, Sonic's prompted to say that he's glad he didn't deactivate him when he had the chance. How was I supposed to know he'd need him for this later? Nobody could have predicted that. I wish Sonic had said that he might need Metal Sonic's help later in a desperate situation as part of his reasoning behind keeping him around. It could go off his reasoning for keeping Eggman around, that the world needs his help in defending it from the Black Arms, and so it might need his help again. But if he did deactivate him, he wouldn't be in this fight. Sonic is blown all the way over to Orbot and Cubot, and hopes he can run up to the Emerald. What is the point of showing us the characters fighting the Robians on the island? It's just one hit against them each, and it constantly changes points of view so that you can't be invested. Amy just has to attack big when he's trying to affect Eggman. I'd rather Eggman get a taste of the metal virus than Knuckles. Amy shouldn't be surprised that her hammer attack did nothing when she knows the Robians can regenerate firsthand. So she gets smacked and wound up roboticized because of an idiot ball. Her hammer attack didn't work on Ruff, why would she forget that? I'm surprised Knuckles wasn't guilty of being outright unbelievably stupid, and yet she was. I mean, it was kind of a dumb waste of time to go fight the Robians since it was going to get a cure anyways. But, for all he knows, Sonic could fail, and he's just trying to spare the refugees the horror of being roboticized for even a few seconds. But it doesn't matter what happens at this point. Tails is sitting there cowering as he's infected too. I guess he joined in on the fighting for the same reason Knuckles did, to prevent the Robians from eventually getting to the refugees. But isn't it obvious there's no point? If they fight the Robians, they'll get infected, and so they'll end up going to infect the refugees anyways. They're better off taking off. But they have to delay them by fighting them, but they're only going to be able to fight them for like a few seconds. This entire scene on the island is blatant padding where the writer wanted to show off what happened to these characters for some reason. Metal reunites with Sonic and flies him to Zavik so he can get the emerald out of him and throw it to Silver. It's certainly refreshing to see Metal Sonic being necessary to help Sonic against the final boss. So because Silver was keeping all of the other emeralds around him, and I guess I'm expected to believe he had to focus so hard on that he couldn't just take the emerald out of Zavik too, Sonic and Silver go super. Now Zavik's screwed. Sonic flies all around Zavik and sends him into the ocean immediately. You'd think Silver would be the one defeating him so fast that's called anticlimactic. But if he did it, it'd be unkid-friendly. It was a shame for Sonic that he couldn't go super with just 6 emeralds like in Sonic X. Sonic says the Warp Topaz isn't handling all this power too well. He tells Silver that he'll drive and handle the Warp Portal, and Silver should handle the rest with his psychokinesis. So with that, the metal virus vanishes. That's satisfying. I'm so glad it didn't last as long as the Shattered World Crisis. I like Tails being happy with Cheese and Chocola. I like seeing the Wisps jump at Tangle as she says, "Oh hey, miss me much?" The Chaotix are singing together, which is slightly cheesy, but makes sense because they sang in their Team Blast in Sonic Heroes. It's implied that Froggy was what roboticized Eggman earlier because he's on top of him now. Why the fuck didn't we see how Eggman looked roboticized? Seriously, it would have been great karma against him and it was so obvious. Tangle was shown being roboticized to the fullest extent because we saw it on her and then she got turned and we saw what she looked like. And Eggman, I don't even remember what he looked like afterwards. The concept of all these heroes being turned into zombots ended up being barely used because they just fought in forgettable melee attacks like any zombie would without the fighting tendency. They could have been regular robots for all it mattered. I can't believe I'm about to compliment the Mecha Sally arc, but at least in that, Mecha Sally was equipped with a ton of new powers, which was badass of her and really took advantage of the concept to its fullest. She could fly, she could shoot a laser from her head. None of that's the case with the Zombot heroes. So it's like them being turned into them was just there for drama that ultimately led to nothing in the end. They didn't fight the heroes in a way only they could. It might as well have not been written to have happened to them. They have that conservation of ninjutsu trope going on, where even though there's a ton of them, it just means all of them are lame. Shadow and Knuckles wake up near the Master Emerald, and Rouge is on top of it, for some much needed levity as she says that with the world about to end, she wanted to spend her last moments with the one she loves. So, she avoided being roboticized entirely? Or was she just a Zombot, but then she would have wandered off from it? Her of all people avoided being roboticized. Well, that's pretty dignified. I get why Knuckles is upset because he's an overprotective idiot. It's not like Rouge would ever abuse its power, come on. But what about Shadow? Why is Shadow so mad at her that he's drawn with shitty anime eyes? We see Gemerald flying towards Vanilla holding Cream, and he says that Cream told him to come here in the assumption that Sonic would succeed. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce Gemerald. I've just been calling him Gemerald because there's the word gem in his name. It's not like I've ever heard his name pronounced before. Or maybe I did, but I forgot the voice clip. Vanilla and Cream hug, but we don't see their entire bodies, which have been common sense to draw to make their hug look better. It's hard to tell Sonic and Silver apart here because they both look golden. He's sending the metal virus where it can't hurt anyone. He was asked where he's sending it. He's supposed to answer the question. Where'd he send it to? The moon? I guess it's Sonic who says the warp topaz isn't going to last much longer, and so they're kicking it into supersonic speed. I hate how cheesy that line is. I guess I'm saying that just because supersonic is also the name of Sonic's super form. Silver says he's not detecting it anymore, as apparently he can detect the metal virus now. I guess he's able to detect anything that he's holding telekinetically. And one of them says it's time to get rid of this. There's an explosion and something hits the ground, and the heroes are worried about Silver. Fortunately, he's actually alive, when this was the perfect time for a heroic sacrifice. I sense a Diabolus Ex Machina coming up. I should have known that a tragedy writer who wrote a bunch of tragedy Sonic fanfiction wouldn't be able to stand having a purely happy ending. Sonic seeming to have a sacrifice after going super and saving the world just reminds me of SC2's ending. Amy says oh no, and the story ends with the heroes looking at green light in a starry night sky as some text at the bottom of the page says that the world won't have Sonic in it. Then there's a second story, where Big the Cat explains his own experience with the Metal Virus arc. We see him fishing in the sewers as Sonic was saying at the start of the previous arc that a hedgehog is a burrowing animal. Big says that from the sewers he followed Froggy to Riverside, where we see him fishing near the giant supposed crab robot. If the whole story is just saying that he followed Froggy everywhere, then that's not creative enough to impress me. That's just a ripoff of SC1. Why bother with a story? So he followed him to Windmill Village. Apparently he was in the shuttle with Shadow way earlier. Then he fell off on the way to Angel Island and swam way on the surface of the ocean. This is just contrived. This issue by Ian Flynn was about Sonic and Silver and their super forms thankfully getting the metal virus sent out of Mobius forever. And it turns out Sonic needed Metal Sonic to fly around with, as he was hanging off him, so that Sonic could be protected by his black shield and get the emerald out of Super Savik, and eventually save the day, because Silver was too occupied holding the emeralds. So even though he was capable of holding 6 things at once separately with his telekinesis, he was too busy holding them in the telekinesis field to, I guess, make another one, so that he could bring the other emerald out of him. So he can't have 2 of them, even though he has multiple telekinesis fields that are clearly separated from each other every time he carries multiple crates with telekinesis in Sonic 06. It's sweet of Sonic to say it was a good thing that he kept Metal Sonic alive. Except the fact remains that if Metal Sonic had been torn apart on Angel Island by Silver, he never would have returned Mr. Tinker's memories and motivated Eggman to make the metal virus in the first place. Meaning that the Super Zavok fight would never happen. So Sonic wouldn't have ever needed Metal Sonic's help. So Silver destroying Metal Sonic wouldn't have backfired on anyone. I was right, he logically should have done that. Unless Starline would have found the metal virus and released it anyways. But according to the way he was talking to Eggman, apparently he would have done it smarter. And Sonic would have been able to use Metal Sonic to get rid of it. If that's the case, then that should have been explained. That should have been explained by one of the characters. Because Starline wasn't making plans on his own. At first, all he wanted to do was bring Eggman back. It was sweet of Sonic to say that to Metal Sonic anyways, just because he saved him. But I shouldn't have been expected to think Sonic didn't make a huge mistake just because he got Sonic out of the mess he made. Tails could have made a Metal Sonic himself that would have the black shield and help him. But I guess he didn't have time for that. That being said, I really appreciate Metal Sonic helping Sonic like that. It was cool to see him be a hero for once, even if he shouldn't have needed Eggman to tell him to do it. I hate that there was a scene where the characters who didn't get infected yet got infected. That was spiteful. I don't think we saw Amy in her Zombot form either. What was the point of showing us their fight with the Robians, other than padding things out, if all the Robians did was barely noticeable melee attacks? While it will complement the arc of being the first time the series had actual tension because it wasn't afraid to roboticize all of these Sonic characters, so it is valuable in that respect despite being too dark. If they're all just gonna act no different than any other Zombots, I think it was pointless to do that to them. You could have not written any of the Sonic game characters to be roboticized, and the climactic fight on Angel Island would have been exactly the same. We just avoided a lot of angsting from the characters that we didn't need. And by a lot, I mean a few lines. A lot of this issue is actually satisfying. While it was technically a bunch of panels with no plot progression, it was still really worth it to see all of the formerly roboticized Sonic game characters celebrate being brought back to normal. It makes sense that Silver helped Sonic save the day. Of course Sonic would need his telekinesis to get rid of the metal virus. It was bullshit that Sonic ended up being sent to another dimension at the end. Way to try to ruin the happy ending there. But it is an intriguing way to lead into another story arc. I'm just hoping Sonic will get the chance to have a long sleep after this, because he's been up for like 4 days at this point. I was actually waiting for the arc to show him as hallucinating or something like that. Because it was already a miracle he was able to stay up that long. I was waiting for him to pass out for a while, and he thankfully didn't. What's the point of writing him to stay up for days without writing the symptoms of that beyond just tiredness? Starling said that staying up too late made him very ill. We didn't see that either. That's a waste of story potential. How would I be expected to believe that he'd avoid the obvious horrible side effects of staying up that long in the next issue? He better be established to sleep at some point, because it's been really pushing it. Sonic accidentally getting himself sent to another dimension reminded me of the beginning of Sonic X. And that had a whole 2 seasons worth of content before he got home. So I can't wait to see what weird new alien dimension Sonic warped himself to. It'll be a place we've never seen before. The only parallel universe he knows other than the Soul Dimension is the Special Zone, and going to the Soul Dimension again would be boring. So maybe he and the Metal Virus goes into the Special Zone. But there better be world building of it to make for a fascinating new story arc to make up for him just going to a place we already know about. That'd be common sense. It'd also be common sense to have him be gone for longer than like a second. Because again, Sonic X lasted a pretty long time. So I'd expect the whole story arc to be about his return home.